Hello, my dear friends and history buffs. Thank you all for joining in today's episode of the 50 Chinese old sayings, which is people will give their best shot. At the first round of the drumbeat, again, people will only give their best shot at the first round of the drumbeat. In Chinese, it is 一鼓作气. And again, 一鼓作气. It is a kind of pep talk used to boost people's morale in getting the job done by giving everything they've got ASAP, with the same meaning as the Western proverb saying, hit the iron when it's hot. The story is still about the cheese steak, which we have talked about in both the fourth and fifth episodes. In the fifth episode, we have mentioned how Jiang Xiaobai beat Jiang Zhou, his half-brother, to become the ultimate ruler of the cheese state, and then had been addressed as the Qi Huan Duke ever since. One day, as he was speaking to his Prime Minister Guanzhong about whether or not it was a good idea to get even with Luqiang Duke to punish him for his support of Jiang Zhou, which turned out to be a disaster for the Lu state. Guanzhong opposed the idea outright by saying that the time was not ripe yet, as the Luqiang Duke had already done all the things that the Qi Huan Duke had asked, namely killing and returning the head of Jiang Zhou and sending Guanzhong back to the Qi state alive. Therefore, Qi Huan Duke simply had no excuses to start a new war, because that would have constituted the Qi state's unilateral breach of peace among the states. However, Qi Huan Duke had decided to do it anyway, simply because he had a score to settle and had a bigger army. Also, another reason could have been because at the time, he and Guanzhong still had a long way to go to know each other very well, so that the trust element between them was not there yet. However, you should know that the Qi Huan Duke later on had addressed Guanzhong as his demi-father to show his respect for him in the next 40 years after the two had become close, both at work and personally. Learning the news about Qi Huan Duke's immediate invasion plan into the Lu state, the Luqiang Duke was also preparing his defense by putting all his people and resources together to make sure everything was ready when the time came, so that not only the ruling class but also the people on the street were starting to know that the war was inevitable between the Lu state and Qi state. One day there was this commoner, Cao Gui, talking to people on the streets about the war, but the people simply told him to go mind his own business because people on the top are supposed to do the job. In response, Cao Gui said his famous catchphrase that people are still using today when criticizing people on the top being ignorant about what's happening in the country, perhaps somewhat like the king's new clothes proverb in the West. He said, "Those meat eaters are short on sight and can't see very far." Meat eaters, he meant, were high-ranking government officials, because ordinary people on the street at the time were not allowed to eat meat, except for very rare occasions such as royal weddings or rulers' birthdays. Anyway, Cao Gui finally got his opportunity to speak to the Luqiang Duke, asking him, "What makes you think you can possibly win the war?" To which the Luqiang Duke answered, "Because I can get help from all the people around me, as I always share everything I have with them." While Cao Gui said, "Your favors to the people around you had nothing to do with the ordinary people who would fight the war for you." The Luqiang Duke then said, "Because I will get blessings from gods, as I have always been true to them about the numbers and quantities of my sacrifices, and I never inflated them." To which Cao Gui responded by saying, "Blessings from gods are not good enough to help win the war." Finally, the Luqiang Duke said, "Because I can get help from the ordinary people, as whenever I sit on the bench to adjudicate a dispute between people, I have always been impartial, doing my best to find out about the truth and render my best judgments." To which Cao Gui replied saying, "In that case, we may still have a chance to win the war." I'll stand in front of your chariot with you and see what I can do." Then one day in 684 BC, the Qi state troops had finally approached the border to start their move, while Cao Gui and Lu Changdu stood side by side on the chariot ready for anything to happen when they heard the Qi troops starting their first round of drumbeat, signaling that they were about to attack. When Cao Gui stopped the Lu Changdu from doing the same thing, explaining, "When it comes to troops' advances in wars, the first round of drumbeat always boosts the highest morale, which will become weaker after the second round and will simply all gone after the third round." So that Lu Changdu had waited up until Qi State's third round was over, when he gave order for the Lu State's first round of drumbeat to attack, which hit the Qi's troops real hard. Lu's troops' morale was at its highest, and that did the trick and turned the tide. As the Qi troops turned around to retreat, Cao Gui once again stopped the Lu Changdu from pursuing the enemies by asking him to wait until Cao Gui had finished checking on the ground to see how the wheel tracks had looked. After he was done with his checking, he jumped back to tell the Lu Changdu, "Now it's time." Then Lu Changdu started his trigger-happy pursuit until the Qi troops were completely pushed back to where they had come from, leaving all kinds of logistics and armors behind. This was the War of Changshou of 684 BC, as the last war the Lu state ever to win against the Qi state by itself. Hey guys, this wraps up today's episode of the 50 Chinese old sayings. People will give their best shot at the first round of the drum beat. Again, people will give their best shot at the first round of the drum beat. In Chinese, it is 一鼓作气. And again, 一鼓作气. Many thanks for you to join in and listen to this episode of the 50 Chinese old sayings with Michael. And until next time, I wish you all the best. Goodbye and have a nice day.